What you guys, got another video here for you. Should you buy a RX 580 in 2020? I picked up this Radeon RX 580 Sapphire Pulse 4GB version for around about £90. So it was a pretty decent price. Now this was an open box brand new graphics card. I also picked up the 1660 Super. So which graphics card should you be buying in 2020 if you're on that sort of price point? This video has been sponsored by GoodOffer24. If you want to grab yourself a Windows 10 Professional key for cheap, then head over here, sign up an account, make sure the key is supported in your region, and then hit the Buy Now button, and then add in my promo code BR09. Apply this and you'll get 18% discount on the price that you can see here, just like so, and then submit your order. Well, the RX 580 is a great card. It was released in 2017. It's a great 1080p graphics card with a TDP of 185 watts. It has an 8-pin power connector on it, and it's a pretty good, decent card. This one doesn't have the RGB on the Sapphire here, but it's a pretty decent card in 2020. Now, the only reason I would say don't buy this is because sometimes they can be very expensive on the used market. If you can get this cheap enough, then it's still worth buying. How cheap is cheap? Well, it depends on where you live in the world. In the UK, they are pretty overpriced, as I'll show you a bit later in the video. Now, this is the 1660 Super. The cost of this is around about £200 to £220, depending on what version you've got. Now, the TDP on this is 125 watts, and it's a much better card than the RX 580. Now, if you can't afford that, then the version down is the 1650 Super, which is on par or equal as the RX 580, but lower TDP. So again, it all comes down to cost and how much you want to spend and what you're actually looking to buy. It does have an 8-pin connector on here, which is your power connector, the same as the RX 580. Now, the TDP for the 1650 Super is a lot lower compared to the RX 580. Now, again, there's a very short supply of RX 580s out there. There's not many different versions, but if you're looking for one, then the best option for you may be to go for something like the 1660 Super over the RX 580 in 2020, because I do think it's going to have a bit more longevity compared to the RX 580 in the future. Now, I still think the RX 580 probably still has a good year left in its legs before it starts to show its age. The 1660 Super is going to give you a little bit more longevity, maybe call it future proofing if that's what you want to call it. But let's take a look at the prices for the used market for the RX 580 on eBay. You can see it's still holding a pretty solid price for some of these, and some of these are bidding prices. Again, I wouldn't pay this sort of money for a used graphics card, in my personal opinion. I think it's a little bit too much, as you can see here. But these are some of the prices which are bidding prices, as I've said. Now, sold prices will show you what they've sold for: £118, £130, and there's quite a few different price variations here. But again, a little bit strong for my liking. I wouldn't be spending anywhere near that for a used graphics card. So you can see the CCL one here, that's a brand new RX 580, which is going to cost you £154.49. There's probably going to be a bit of delivery on there as well, but you can see I would not be paying that much money for a used graphics card. Let's head over to Amazon and take a look at some of the prices for a new RX 580. You can see £159 will get you a brand new dual fan RX 580 8GB overclocked edition. So again, I really probably wouldn't spend that much on a brand new RX 580. I'd probably go with something like a 1650 or a 1660 if I had to. But again, that's the prices you can find here. Now, there's not a lot of different variations of RX 580s because they're probably phasing them out, and you're not going to see a lot of variants of them available. Now, the 1650 Supers, on the other hand, have lower TDP, and again, the prices on these are probably in the same price bracket as the RX 580. The performance difference between the 1650 Super and the RX 580 isn't going to be light years apart. It's just going to be the odd frame here and there. So you can work out which one you want to go for. Probably the lower power draw is going to be with the GTX 1650 Super, and it's probably going to be the better choice to go for if you're going for a new graphics card. I would personally spend that little bit extra and go for the 1660 Super, because that's when things actually change quite a lot compared to the cards that we're talking about. There's a massive jump in performance. So 1660 Super is probably where I would put my money. So £200 is going to get you a Zotac Gaming GeForce GTX 1660 Super. So you're looking at around about, I suppose, £40 difference between them two cards, the 1650 Super and the 1660 Super. I'd rather save your money and get the 1660 Super, in my opinion. So I wouldn't recommend you buy a brand new RX 580, but if you can get one cheap enough, it's still worth buying. So how much should you spend on an RX 580? That's going to come down to where you live in the world. In the UK, prices are still pretty high. So an RX 580 to me is probably worth about £90 used, but it would have to be in really good condition. And obviously I don't want any used RX 580s that have been repaired. So how would you know all of that? That's the risk you're going to have to take when you're buying used graphics cards. It could be some guy that's actually stripped it down and fixed it. And again, you could have that card for 2 or 3 months and then end up with problems. So, and if you're spending £120, £130 on a used RX 580, that can be soul destroying when you've got to then buy another graphics card, because you're not going to get any warranty with those used graphics cards. Sometimes you're better off just buying new and spending the extra money. There's not much difference between used RX 580s and a brand new RX 580. So it really comes down to doing a bit of research and finding the right card for you. And the RX 580 is still a great 1080p gaming card in 2020. You've probably got about another year, I reckon, for the RX 580 before it starts to fizzle out. So if you're looking to buy an RX 580, try and get a used one for around about £90, which is around about $100. I wouldn't pay any more than that. And that would have to be in really tip-top condition if I'm spending that sort of money. But that's just my personal opinion. You know, don't pay too much because it's not worth it and you're going to end up getting your fingers burnt. Yes, the RX 580 is still worth it in 2020 as long as you're getting it at the right price. Anyway, with that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Bye for now. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the red subscribe button and then hit the bell notification button and click all to be notified when we upload new videos.